Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Angelisa and I make videos about books. And today we are going to be doing Steph Brower's, I don't know if that's how you say her name, but Steph Brower's book recommendation tag. So I have watched a few. It's been going all over BookTube for the past month or so. I'm kind of late to the game, but I wanted to wait to do it. So I'm gonna do it, and I'm pretty sure the one that I'm doing has some extra questions from another YouTuber, but I pulled these from Rachel Catherine's video. So yeah, I'm gonna put all the questions in the description below, but we're just gonna jump right into it. So the first one asks, a book you tell people is your favorite. So previously, without a doubt, I would have said A Court of Mist and Fury, but recently I read Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, and they are now tied with each other for being my favorite books. A Court of Mist and Fury is definitely my favorite fantasy, hands down, even romance wise, but Icebreaker just hit home, and I just remember the feeling that I had when I was reading it, and nothing was wrong with that book for me. Every single thing in that book I loved. So yeah, those are my favorite books. Number 2, a book that is your guilty pleasure. So for me, this is the Bridgerton series. I'm not embarrassed to say that I read it, but I just think that it's a book that you either love or a lot of people hate and think is really childish. But the addiction kind of stemmed from watching the series on TV, and then when I found out that they were based on books, I was like, I want to read that. So I read the first few, and they're just really cute and easy romances, and I find them really funny. So yeah, Bridgerton series is my guilty pleasure. Number 3, a book everyone loved but you didn't. So I don't know what it was, but so many people loved The Hating Game, and I personally did not. I don't know why. Everything about it was annoying to me, and I really it was the first time that I liked the movie better than the book. So yeah, if you want to know my thoughts on that, I actually talked about it in a video on my channel after I read it. I read it at the end of 2022, so it's in my 53 books that I read in 2022 video. But yeah, it was just not it for me. For anybody wondering, the Smurfs did have something to do with it. Right, the next question, number 4, a book you read the fastest. So there is one book that I have read beginning to finish, one sitting, did not get up, did not put it down, and that is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now there's plenty of books that I've read in one day, in 2 days, in a few hours, meaning I read if you measured how much time it actually took me to read the book in total, I read it very fast. But 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo I read so quick, it was ridiculous, and I loved it so much, and it's one of my top favorite books for sure. Number 5, a book that deserves more hype. So this is actually a book that got me back into reading last year, and I don't know if I don't know anybody who's heard of this book, but I thought it was a really good book, and I think it deserves more hype and should be read more, and it's Wild Game by Adrienne Baudouin, and this is a memoir that's written as a fiction, and it's about the author and her relationship with her mom, and keeping secrets for her mom, and just being a younger teenager, and just the dynamics between a mother and daughter in general. And yeah, it was a very interesting read for me. I really liked it. I rated it 5 stars. It was one of my favorite books. Number 6, a book that is becoming a movie or TV show. So this was actually just announced, and I was so excited because when I saw that People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry was becoming a movie, I was like, oh, okay, cool, but that's not my favorite Emily Henry movie, or book, I mean. And then I saw that Beach Read is going to become a movie as well, so I'm so excited. I don't know when it's coming out, but Beach Read by Emily Henry is getting adapted, and it's never gonna do justice to the book, obviously, but I'm still excited to see Augustus in January on a screen. I think it's gonna be so good. Number 7, a book that you reread the most. So I've actually never reread a book. I know, that's kind of weird. The only one I really reread is The Perks of Being a Wallflower, but that was when I was a kid. So I've reread that one a few times. partially because I read it the first time just to read it, and then I think the second time I read it for like a book report or something. But anyways, to answer this question though, I will say that books that I'm planning on rereading and that I've been having an inkling to reread is ACOTAR and like A Court of Mist and Fury, of course, and probably ACOWAR too, just to like read the first 3 again, because I just finished A Court of Silver Flames and I just posted a reading vlog for that, and it was okay. It was underwhelming. You can go watch the video to see what my thoughts were, my full thoughts, but it was interesting compared to the first 3. But on top of that, I am probably going to be rereading The Assassin's Blade because of the whole debate about like when you should read it. I read it before everything, but I also want to read it like 4th or 3rd or whatever the recommendation is, just to see the difference, and I might just like skim it / reread. Number 8, a book from a genre that you don't typically read. So for this, I'm gonna say I'm Glad My Mom Died because it's a memoir. Now I know I just talked about a memoir, but literally that other book is like pretty much the only other memoir that I had read besides the one by Dolly Alderton, like Everything I Know About Love. I've literally read 3 memoirs in total. So yeah, I would say read I'm Glad That My Mom Died. It's a very different memoir. It's very quick. I remember it being like under 300 pages, and it just talked about like a lot of important issues, and it's about a person that like a lot of people in our age group and like our generation are, meaning me. I don't know who I'm talking about. But if you are my age, you can probably relate to that person because she is not relate, but can like identify that person and like be like, oh, I know who that is. It's Sam from iCarly. But it's also, I think, good for parents to read, to understand like the things that like their children might be going through mentally and like what can happen when you put pressure on them to do certain things. So yeah, very good read. I'd recommend it. It's called I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Number 9, a book that deserves all the hype it gets. So for me, I recently read Daisy Jones and the Six, and I listened to the audiobook, and I 110% understand the hype. I'm watching the show right now, and all of it deserves the hype that it's getting. The book, the audiobook, the TV show, it is so good. I love that like cast of characters, and just I cried, I laughed, like there's just so many emotions when I was listening and reading that book. Number 10, a book you usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation. So I'm going to talk about like 3 or 4 different genres for this. So for romance, I usually recommend an Emily Henry book, usually beach read, because they're so easy to read and it's just such a cute read for me. And for literary fiction, I will usually recommend a Taylor Jenkins Reid book, specifically like her newer ones, like Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Malibu Rising, like those ones. And then for fantasy, I always would recommend Sarah J. Maas. That's the first fantasy book that I got into, and that's what I recommend to everybody because it's like a perfect segue from romance to fantasy romance, and then you can kind of go deeper into like fantasy with like still romance in it, but less and less. And then for mystery thriller, I always recommend Lisa Jewell books because they are also so easy to read and they just keep you entertained and always have like a reveal at the end. Number 11, a book that has your favorite characters. Okay, this one was kind of hard, but I realized that it's the characters in Icebreaker because all of them, like, they just warmed my heart. Each and every character warmed my heart, except for the ones that weren't supposed to warm your heart, obviously. But when I thought about, like, yeah, those were my favorite characters. Like, there's my favorite characters in, like, fantasy books and blah, blah, blah. But I've never read a book that, like, so many of the characters I liked and worked together so well and was just, like, every relationship and friendship in it, I just loved. I loved every joke. I loved everything. Number 12, a book you wish you could live in. So for me, this is actually the Taylor Jenkins Reid universe. Every time I read one of her newer books, I just wish that, like, those people existed in our multiverse, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I wish Evelyn Hugo existed. I wish Carrie Soto existed. Like, I wish that Daisy Jones and the Six existed. and it's just so sad that they don't, because it would have been so cool if they did. And obviously, like, each of these are drawn from different inspirations in real life. Like, some people say Evelyn Hugo is like kind of based off of like Marilyn Monroe and like old Hollywood basically. And you know, Carrie Soto is back. A lot of people compare her to Serena Williams, you know, being trained by her dad. Daisy Jones and the Six is, I think, loosely based off of Fleetwood Mac or something like that. So these people do exist in our universe, but just the way that it's written by Taylor Jenkins Reid, like, I wish I lived there. Like, it's just so good. Number 13, a book you thought you would hate but ended up loving. So this was actually very interesting. I read this month, and I'm going to talk about it in my wrap up at the end of the month, but I'll mention it now. So it's actually The Midnight Club by Christopher Pike. So I bought this book because my boyfriend picked it out, and he was like, oh yeah, that's a book I might read. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to read it and see if like it's good, because we watched the show together. And I wasn't really sure if I was going to like it, because I've heard that the book is not like the show at all, and it's like loosely based off of it. And it was only 200 pages, so it was like, how is it going to cover like everything that the show has, especially with the second season coming out, in like 200 pages? So instead, it ended up being really good, and it had a lot of good messages about, well, not good messages, but kind of just like makes you think about, you know, what happens after we die. And there were some religious themes, but honestly, even in the book it says, like, one of the characters says, like, I didn't think of it as very religious, but more like spiritual, and just like questioning like the universe and whether we have a soul or a spirit, or if we move on or we don't, and all that type of stuff, and reincarnation. And there was like Buddhist themes and Hindu themes, and there was just so many themes in there that I was like very impressed by. And yeah, I'll talk about it more in my wrap up, but that was definitely a book that I didn't expect I was going to like that much. I thought maybe I would rate it like 3 stars, and I ended up rating it 4. Now, it wasn't like my favorite book ever. It still was only 200 pages, so there's not like a lot you can get out of that. But for 200 pages, I enjoyed myself. I cried, I laughed, and there was a lot of interesting stories in there, and just like important messages, I think. Number 14, a book that made you cry. So for this one, I'm going to talk about the Dance of Thieves duology. No book besides A Court of Mist and Fury, which I've already mentioned a bunch of times, has made me cry like this duology did. You can watch the reading vlogs. It was actually the first 2 reading vlogs I ever did on my channel, and I'm so glad that I picked those to document the experience, because I cried so much. I cried on camera and off camera. There are many times that I cried off camera, and I don't know what it was when I was reading these books, because some people who've read them, like, they haven't had the same reaction, but I cried, and I loved it so much. I cried happy tears, sad tears, like, there was so many things going on. But yeah, that's also probably a book that I'm gonna plan to reread. Number 15, a book that you wish you could read for the first time. So for this, I'm definitely gonna say ACOTAR. When I reread it, I'm just like, it's not gonna be the same feeling. I wish I could erase my memory and read it again and again and again. Especially having just read A Court of Silver Flames, I feel like A Court of Thorns and Roses is just going to be so different in comparison when I reread it. Number 16, a book that could cure a reading slump. So for me, I definitely think The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. Ali Hazelwood's writing just has a way of like making you want to continue reading. You could be reading the most boring scene, but just the way that she's written it, it's not boring. Like, I don't know, I really love the way that she writes, even if her characters are annoying. Like, I really found the like female main character in, what's it called, Love on the Brain, kind of annoying. But there's been a few times where I've been in a slump and I just read one of her like little feminist novellas, and whoop, I was ready to read again. Like, they're just so much fun to read. 17, a book you think everyone needs to read. So for this, I would actually recommend Taylor Jenkins Reid's Backlist. So I'm not talking about her new reads where they're all like related. I'm talking about One True Loves, Maybe in Another Life, Forever Interrupted. What's the last one? But yeah, these books, they kind of just make you question like reality a little bit, and they kind of just play with like time and decision making and a little bit of multiverse kind of action. And I don't know, I think that they're just books that everyone should read and just allow your mind to absorb the feeling that like the characters are going through as well. I don't know if I explained that very well, but I just remember reading these and being like, yeah, I needed that. I needed to read this. I really did. Number 18, a book that you think would make an amazing movie. So I remember when I was reading Gallant by V.E. Schwab, and while I was reading it, it was very much reminding me of how I felt when I was watching Haunting of Hill House. Now they're not similar, but they're similar kind of. And I said to my boyfriend, I was like, babe, this would be such a great movie. Like, you would love this book in a movie or TV show. So yeah, definitely Gallant by V.E. Schwab. It's very like haunted house, paranormal vibes, and so much suspense in it. And when you're reading, you're kind of like, oh my god, what's going on? So the same kind of feeling that I get when I'm watching those types of shows. Number 19, a book you wish everyone would give a shot, even if it's out of their comfort zone. So I know that like witch stuff and crystals and all that stuff isn't for everybody, but The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling, who's also Rachel Hawkins, I believe, was one of my favorite romance books that I read last year. It was so cute. It was so much fun. I'm gonna read The Kiss Curse. I'm waiting till October this year to read it because I don't know, I just want to read it during that time. It just gives that vibe, little Halloween town romance vibe. And yeah, highly recommend. But even if you don't like witches and like crystals and like all that type of stuff, you'll still love the romance in this and just the vibes. Read it for the vibes. Number 20, last book, a book you'll never forget. To finish this off, I'm just gonna say it. It's the ACOTAR series. That series is ingrained in my brain, specifically the first 3. There are still days that I lie awake at night thinking about it, and I have a feeling, because I'm gonna be reading the Throne Glass series, like I told you I just read The Assassin's Blade, I have a feeling, I just have a feeling, a little inkling, a little tiny inkling that I'm gonna love it, and then it's just gonna be ingrained in my brain just like this one is. Already when I read The Assassin's Blade, I literally couldn't read anything else without thinking about it. It was a horrid week, and then finally I was able to move on. I think I read a completely different fantasy series. Oh, I read The Cruel Prince to move on, I believe. But yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that little video. I love tag videos. It brings me back to like the old YouTube days when YouTubers used to do tags. I don't know if anyone else did this when they were a little teenager, but I made YouTube videos. They are all on private. You will never find them. They're on an old account that you'll never find and never locate those videos because I started this channel from scratch. But I used to love making tag videos. I think they're just so much fun, and they're such an easy way to just like get to know someone and just kind of chat and sit down. So comment down below your answers to these questions. Like I said, I'll put them in my description so you can read them and answer them. I would love to get book recommendations from you guys and see if our tastes align, and if they don't, I want to try new books anyway. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And I hope you have a good rest of your day or whenever you're watching this. All right, bye.